Love it. The calls. You'll eventually get the 20% back. That Silver Connect card is going to pay her co-payments. Remicade, I believe, is an injectable, and her hospitalization co-payments. And tell them to turn his Part B on. Medicare and you, we're going to throw a little healthcare in you. But I had somebody come to the office the other day and was like, stay on your topics. Your Medicare and you is way more important to us. It's important to everybody. But I do have to touch on a little healthcare in you as well, because the Access Health CT is here to stay. Now, I have a caller patiently waiting on the dedicated line. Let's take that because they're in D.C. How's D.C. treating you, my friend?
So thank you, Michael. I appreciate you having me on the show.
This is Christopher Mele. He is with Access Health CT out of Connecticut. He and his colleagues are in Washington, D.C. now, ironing out some problems. I can't thank you enough for your time, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I'm from Access Health CT. I am the broker marketing and sales manager. I deal with all broker issues, tax credit issues, and just here to talk to you guys a little bit about our special enrollment period and how the logistics of that are going to work going forward.
Okay, so now March 31st has ended. SEP will be a special election period that you will still be able to go on to the fantastic Access Health, www.accesshealthct.com, and purchase insurance. How can they do that, Chris?
Yeah, so basically the process is when you go onto accesshealth.com and you go through the enrollment process, a new section will appear when you go through your application. It'll have an SEP section, as Michael alluded to, a special election period. The way you qualify for one of these special election periods is by having what we call a qualifying event. Very similar to what Michael talks about with the Medicare market. A qualifying event is an event in your life that allows you the opportunity to enroll off of the enrollment period cycle. So particularly, the most common form of a special enrollment period qualifying event will be loss of MEC, or MEC, which stands for minimum essential coverage. So when people lose their minimum essential coverage, they get what they called a certificate of credible coverage from their insurance company that they previously had coverage with. So the process for them is going to be, they go into accesshealth.com, they go through the application. Under the SEP section, there'll be a list of qualifying events they can click. They're going to click on the qualifying event that says loss of MEC, and then what they'll have is a 60-day eligibility period for them to select a plan, go through the enrollment process, put their income in, and qualify potentially for a tax credit.
Right.
They also have what they call a 90-day verification period. So they have 90 days to submit the documentation to Access Health, proving that they truly qualify for a special enrollment period and they have a qualifying event. Other reasons people would have a qualifying event is you got married, divorced, or anything that was related to a family event that would be cause for you needing to change coverage.
One just came up this morning at a client of mine. The girl turned 26 and came off her parents' plan. I said, no, that's perfect right there.
Yes, that would be you actually filed that under loss of MEC as well.
Right.
Now, there are situations, it's interesting you mentioned that, because there are situations where people, for instance, like I mentioned, people get married, people get divorced. This would cause change in coverage. Now, you also have to take into account the fact that under the guidelines we have, which were handed out to us from HHS, the Health and Human Services Department for the federal government, the way the guidelines are actually written, so if somebody has a policy and their wife is currently uninsured, or their spouse is currently uninsured, and then they have a qualifying event of divorce, or somebody is engaged and they are married as of July or September, and one of the couple didn't currently have insurance, that's not a qualifying event for them to actually go on and get coverage. The qualifying event would allow them the opportunity to go on a plan together. So someone who's currently uninsured and didn't purchase a plan within the allotted time during the enrollment period, who's just uninsured and then has a qualifying event because they got married wouldn't necessarily be qualified just based on the fact that they got married.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have to already have coverage to another avenue in order to go on the plan with their spouse.
Well put. Okay.
You understand? You understand what I'm talking about, Michael?
I hope my listeners are getting that, because that was really well done on your part. Okay, so now I know
that's very important.
I know you're time pressed. One quick question. I have two that keep coming up. The person is on Cobra. I listened to Fridays with Phil last week, and it was a great issue. So we got a follow-up email regarding the Cobra. The Cobra Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. If your employer is contributing as severance or something towards the Cobra, you cannot drop that Cobra and get an SEP to go on to the exchange.
Correct. You can't voluntarily drop Cobra. If you have a Cobra extension or you have Cobra and the Cobra expires, you do have the opportunity under the loss of net guideline to go on to Access Help and have a qualifying event.
Right.
So yeah, if anybody has Cobra currently and then for some reason they don't have the option to have Cobra, either the Cobra extension expires, Cobra itself expires, then they would be qualified to go on to Access Health. Voluntarily canceling Cobra would not qualify as a qualifying event.
Bingo. That's what I wanted you to say, because you're the guru. Did you hear that, listeners? You can't just voluntarily take yourself on Cobra that you currently have been on, drop it, and assume you're going to get Access Health through the exchange the first of the following month. You cannot do that.
And that's actually all coverages. I mean, even if you're talking about off the exchange, Michael, if you go directly to a carrier like Anthem or Aetna or one of the private insurance companies that we work with at Access Health, but you don't go through Access Health and you go direct to them, there's no type of extra leniency going directly to the companies.
Right.
These are guidelines handed down from HHS on how the insurance industry is supposed to operate for the purposes of qualifying events. So,
okay, and then one last thing. What is an exceptional circumstance, and why is tomorrow such an important date?
Exceptional circumstance can be many things. We have situations where people belong to a Native American tribe, or people have a situation where, based on their income, they're paying more than 9.5% of their household income for health insurance.
Yep.
But the thing you got to understand about this guideline, we have a lot of people, and I work primarily with brokers who are very savvy, like yourself.
Thanks.
And a lot of brokers will ask me, somebody's on a plan right now, they're currently covered. They think they're paying too much, and they believe that they would qualify for a special circumstance to go through the exchange and get coverage. That's an option for them, but what they need to understand is that if they go through the exchange and apply for coverage using a special circumstance, they need to provide documentation that's reviewed by an independent third-party source to determine whether or not the information is submitted would be qualifying enough for them to actually go through the process of picking a plan.
And so is that third party
what I would advise people is do not drop your coverage on the contingency of a qualifying event for a special circumstance unless you're confident that you'll get such an election. Now, if somebody's uninsured at the moment and they want to try to qualify for a qualifying event for a special circumstance, for instance, if they tried to enroll and they didn't receive enough adequate help, or there was a special circumstance where their enrollment was delayed for some reason through technical matters, that's something you should go through with anyway. But I would not cancel your coverage to go through a qualifying event for a special circumstance unless you're confident you're going to be able to prove it.
Okay, now how about this one? You've got a 40-year-old male, no names for HIPAA reasons. He's got a 51-year-old female spouse, and they have 5 children. His premium used to be a full family premium at his employer. It was whatever said rate, $1,300. It went up to $2,900 because...
Again, it's a great question too. But any of these situations, irrespective of the logistics of it and the size of the family and the circumstances of the issue, it's going to come down to what they can prove. So this person would have to actually they'd have to get the bills, and then they would have to tally the total cost and the total membership for their family, and they basically have to go through the process of proving that this is more than 9.5% of their household income, and this is an exceptional circumstance, and it would all get submitted through the Access Health system, which would be verified by that third-party company who makes the final determination. So it's something that...
Lastly, with the monster rate increases that our clients are getting, if the employer decides to just contribute now just to the employee, and the employee can't pay for their wife or spouse, does that renewal qualify as a qualifying event for the group? Because a carrier out there is putting on renewal, you can drop your plan and have them go to the exchange. Is that a qualifying event? The group is
it
on
would be a
renewal
qualifying event, but it would be under the
1st.
same circumstance of being able to prove that the affordability of your health care coverage is no longer affordable.
Okay, so for the groups out there that are having renewals, it does not automatically mean you can drop the family and they'll get coverage. You've got to handle that each one on a one-by-one basis, right?
Yeah, the exchange standpoint, the standpoint of the Connecticut Health Exchange is that any voluntary terminations are not considered a qualifying event. Again, with exceptional circumstances, we're always willing to consider, people who don't meet affordability standards and people who have special circumstances that dictate that they should be able to have a qualifying event.
Got it. All right. So have a great day. Good luck down in D.C., and thanks for everything you do for us.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Christopher Mele, Access Health CT. We're going to take a commercial break. Producer Tom, give me the break symbol. We'll be back in 2 minutes after we plug the sponsors.